Junta Chapter 1 began on the 3rd of September, 2023. Originally, there were 4 people in the server: Alex, Croco, Matt, and Accelerator, Eastwind joining on the 25th. There were 4 major nations: the KRK, Krovia, Mayak Bastion Republic, and the Puma Federation. The roleplay began on the 5th of September. The MBR attacked and captured the island of Hymar. The KRK attacked Al-Habar for oil rights in the region, suppressed rebel resistance, and set up numerous bases in the region for anti-terrorist operations. On the 7th of September, the KRK launched an offensive into Marble Island, successfully capturing it without much resistance. However, Al-Habar experienced major unrest. Rebels retook control of the island and attempted to fend off the MBR and KRK alone. The MBR and KRK, in response, launched an operation to recapture the island over the next few days. On September 9th, the MBR managed to capture Tinian Island, and the KRK invaded the island of Area 51 as a base for the next offensive. However, in the far north, Krovia, seeking expansion, would declare war on the KRK. The Krovian Air Force engaged with the Crocodilians that same day, managing to effectively gain air superiority over the region and seize the island itself. To cope with this loss, the KRK took control of Kaliningrad and attacked the island of Vau with the MBR. Together, they managed to secure the island for the KRK. Lastly, the KRK captured Pearl Harbor, completing the chain of events that happened on the 9th. On the 10th of September, local militia forces launched an attack on Vau in an attempt to recover the city, which failed to make any major breakthroughs. On the 13th, a shootout between MBR special forces and a terrorist group broke out. Al-Hejaz was evacuated as terrorists demolished the buildings. 58 dead. Of these, 32 were terrorists, 4 MBR deaths, and 27 civilians. On the 16th, Orion Air Flight 5103 crashed outside of Darren. 121 were confirmed dead, including the pilot and co-pilot. On the 17th, Mehmet Illinois Baran announced in a speech that Egypt will be going on a path of self-dependency. The announcement is met by celebration from the locals. This potentially uplifted Egypt to a regional superpower. As sunrise broke over the world on the 20th of September, the KRK and Krovia instantly had diplomatic tensions skyrocketed, as both sides suspected the other of flying within the other's airspace. By evening, all hell broke loose. It is unknown exactly what had happened on this day and the next few, so I will be trying to recount them using what evidence we have. It is often suspected that the Krovian Air Force attempted multiple offensives into the east, south, and west of its borders, each failing due to the MBR's anti-air defense system, which was set up on each island as part of the alliance. On the 21st, the KRK attempted its own offensive into Krovia by directly attempting a ground assault on the Krovian capital of Volgo. The attack began when the Crocodilians advanced from the south, instantly meeting resistance on the outskirts of the city. However, they attempted to continue their offensive into the center, which effectively cut their supply lines off. The Krovians took advantage of this, pushing the Crocodilians back to the landing crafts and out of the island. By the end of the day, the Crocodilians had lost most of their ground forces, but the Krovians had heavy civilian casualties. On the 22nd and 23rd, both sides experienced a stalemate, with only minor skirmishes or no combat at all taking place on both days, which gave both sides time to recover some of their losses. The last battle of the war took place on the 24th, when Krovian and Crocodilian ground forces met again in North Star. This time, the Crocodilians arrived with a repaired army and 5 stolen Krovian T-90 tanks. The battle was short and brutal. The defenders of North Star fought to their very last man. Overall, both sides lost almost everything at North Star, the Crocodilians only having 1 remaining tank to capture the island. In response, the Krovian government, knowing it was going to be near impossible to transport tanks from the main island to North Star, as the MBR was securing the air superiority of the region, was forced to sign a peace treaty with no other choice. The decision to sign a peace treaty rather than attack an already weakened occupation of North Star enraged the majority of the government and civilians within Krovia. Thus, later that day, numerous factions formed within the government and declared war, starting the long and brutal Crovian Civil War, which did not end until the 7th of October. On the 25th, during an intense raid of where one federal soldier was shot, the leader of the fascist order of Crovia was killed. 17 other FOK members were murdered during the raid, Politis Katushin being among the 17 dead. General Kitvilson instantly took his place as the head of the FOK. On the 28th, the KRK held an election, however. Numerous factions started attempts to seize power for themselves via a military coup. Every attempt failed. In Crovia, the East saw one of the most brutal days of constant fighting, as all four factions had territory in that area. On the 3rd of October, a coup was launched on the island of Rizny. The Puma Confederation quickly took control and successfully established a new government of its own interests. The main Crovian government reached out to the new nation and signed a military alliance with the Pumies. In Crovia, the final major holdout of the fascist order of Crovia fell in the southeast, making the faction collapse. The KRK that same day tested its first nuke on an isolated island. Lastly, a Crovian Airlines plane crashed shortly after being shot down by northern separatists. 3 of the 98 people on the plane have died in the crash. The very next day, the Northern Union was destroyed in their attempt to reach the capital of the main government. The federal government and Free Republic, having similar interests, are drawn to negotiations over the fate of the lands. On October 7th, the Crovian Civil War ended as the last 2 factions decided to reform the government rather than fight. The nation was united again, although the scars of the conflict would remain. 12,578 soldiers died from every faction and 9,023 civilians died in crossfire. In the morning, there was an uprising in recently split Al-Salam. The KRK and Pumuft worked hard to contain it, but the situation turned dire. The Pumuft evacuated civilians, while the KFF worked around the clock to secure the city. Several KLO helicopters were deployed. 0 KFF deaths, 1 Pumafed, 84 SARLF soldiers, 198 SARLF civil militia members, and 4,812 civilians. On the 8th, militia in Marble Island rose up against the KRK. They frequently attacked KRK convoys, positions, and harassed their supply lines for many weeks, proving to be an annoyance to the KRK. On the 15th, the Sultanate of Zuran has just launched an attack on Ojan bases in its territory. Zuran has denied the operation, but footage from bystanders largely confirmed the attack and the loss of one airplane, which was Zurani. That same day, at 11:32 a.m., Phoenix Air Flight 1324 crashed into the sea shortly after takeoff from Daniel K. Iouni Airport, killing all 163 on board. Investigations confirmed the crash happened due to a fatal stall. On the 21st, the situation on Marble Island continued to worsen. So, the KRR deployed the new and reformed KFF to the area. The intention was to train the KFFF in actual combat, and for them to get used to their new tanks. The last event to happen in Chapter 1 occurred on the 3rd of November. A 737 of Phoenix Air crashed outside of Volgo. It suffered a collision mid-air with Crovia Airlines Flight 3302. It was only a minor tail strike for the Crovian plane, but a wing strike for the Phoenix. All on board the Phoenix Air flight died, while the Crovian Airlines flight was able to safely land. And with that, my friends, Chapter 1 concluded shortly after. It remained as the least known and most forgotten part of La Junta history. However, despite only having 5 active nations, the roleplay was still just as good as the other chapters. Chapter 2 was made on the 2nd of February 2024. The creator, Alex, has said that Chapter 1 was short but brutal, a perfect description, a story of violence, war, and chaos. And now, my friends, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.